English 201, week 1, part 3. Sorry, I do that. Don't worry about that. That's like, in the movie, you don't know that. It's a thing that I do just to stay organized. Don't worry about it. So let's go through these terms. I made it real simple. There's only 5 terms you need to know. You don't even have to write this shit down. I actually, on the course, under course content, there is a handout called the 5 key terms, which will sort of summarize what I'm telling you here about the 5. I'm going to go into a lot of detail about the 5 key terms. This class, yeah, I'll give that speech now. Some of your classes are information-based. So, for example, and I don't know, I haven't taken a science class in a long time, but for example, in science class, they might teach you a bunch of shit about, like, I don't know, lizards or something, and you'd read the chapter in the science textbook or biology textbook on lizards, and then there'd be a test on lizards where they would want to see, did you remember all of the shit that the professor told you and the book told you about lizards? And then you answer a bunch of questions about lizards, and if you remember all the things about lizards from the book and the professor, then you get an A. This class is not like that. This class is not, like English 101, this class is not an information class. I am not trying to fill your heads with information. This is a skills class. It's more like basketball, where there are, basketball's pretty simple, right? There's a bunch of rules about how you can move, and what you can do and how points are scored. And you can learn basketball pretty fast. It doesn't take a long time. Chess also, like, you want to learn to play chess, it's not hard. The pieces, there's like, a handful of pieces and they have different moves and there's a handful of rules and then you got it. But the trick with basketball and chess, knowing what the pieces do or what the legal moves are, it's not enough. The way to play chess or basketball well is you practice. You got to get good at the moves. So this class is going to seem like a class about Shakespeare because I'm going to talk about Shakespeare a lot. But it's not a class about Shakespeare. It's actually a class about the 5 key terms. Like the moves in chess or the rules about how basketball is played, this class is about these 5 key terms. And again, they are summary, metaphor, irony, theme, and sound. You don't really need sound. Sound's not super important. So, I'll tell you why. I'll tell you about sound later. Students don't do sound. Basically, sound is important, but if you never talk about it, you can still get an A. So you really only have 4 key terms. But sound's important to me. Okay, so this class is simple. This week, right, like now, I'm going to teach you what the 5 key terms are and how they work. And that'll be it. You will at that point have learned basically everything I need you to know for the entire semester. Well, why don't we end the class on week 1? Why do we have to go on for 14 weeks? Because for the other 13 weeks, what we are going to do is practice with the key terms that I taught you. Because it's one thing to be able, I'm not going to quiz you and be like, define metaphor, define irony. What I want to see is, can you talk about metaphor? Can you find and discuss the metaphors in the story? And I'm going to give you some Shakespeare stuff to talk about, but theoretically, you should be able to do this in a movie theater or watching TV or in other classes that you're taking, or just, you pick up a book on the street and you read it. People leave books outside all the time. So all this class is these 5 key terms, really 4, and then you just practice with it. And I picked some books for us to discuss. Now, did I pick the best books? I don't know. I just picked my favorite books because I only teach shit that I actually like. So I could have picked stuff that was like easy for students, and I was like, no, I don't want to do that. I'm just going to pick the shit that I would like to read in my free time, and because I enjoy reading the same book over and over and over again. And so we're going to do what I like. Because the course isn't really about that. The course is about the 5 key terms. So let's get started talking about the 5 key terms. Number 1 is the easiest. Everybody knows number 1. High school is all about number 1, summary. Summary is everybody knows how to do this. Summary is easy. My students have no trouble summarizing. In fact, they love summarizing so much because their past teachers have trained them to do it so much that my students tend to get stuck on summary. They have trouble doing anything but summary. And I give a lot of D's to students who turn in papers that are just summary and don't mention metaphor, irony, and theme. So summary is easy and simple, but it's a little bit of a trap. If you only talk about summary, you are very, very limited. But let's talk about summary a little bit because it is important. All summary means is when you read a book, can you kind of put it in your own words? Can you paraphrase it? You read a book or you read a poem. Can you tell somebody what happened to the characters in the play? Can you tell people what happened to the characters in the book? Can you tell people what happened to the what? Can you summarize the poem in such a way that someone who didn't read it basically gets the idea? Um, Summary is really important in lower levels of education like high school and middle school, partly because students are reading and they're not super good at reading, or they don't want to read, or both. And so teachers have students do summaries to sort of prove that you read. That is not, I'm not doing that. That's dumb. But that's what's happening a lot of the time in your literature classes, is you're asked to summarize what happened in the book to the characters. Um, First this happened, then this other thing happened. That's summary. And of course, usually a book is quite long and your summary is much shorter. So if a book is 100 pages, you might summarize the book in 1 page. So, if you get a book, if you look at the back cover, usually the back cover has that's a bad example, but Wikipedia will take a novel, and I'm sure you guys have gone on Wikipedia. If someone assigns a novel and you don't read the novel, you go to Wikipedia and you read the summary of the novel. Nothing wrong with that, by the way. I have no problem with students reading summaries of books online. I think it's actually quite valuable, as long as you also read the book. Um, but and actually, I'm gonna tell you to please go read Wikipedia summaries of the books we're reading in this class. Just also read the books. I like summary. Summary's great. Just don't get stuck there. So summary's pretty straightforward, but there are advanced ways to do summary. So there are some slightly advanced things you can do with summary. So for starters, one of the things summary just means is just paying attention to what's happening in the book. So I'm going to give you I'm trying to think of a good example of something I want to talk about with summary. But you want to pay attention to who is speaking. Who are they speaking to? But also, why are they speaking? You want to try one of the advanced things you can do with summary is talk about a character's psychology, right? So a simple summary might be like, this guy stabbed this other guy in the face with a sword, or this guy stabbed this other guy in the face with a sword because he was angry. That's slightly better. But you can also go into more detail. You can sort of say, well, because of this character's history, he's impulsive. You can see that over here and over here and over here and over here. And he acts quickly. He's used to acting fast. And so he stabs this dude in the face with a sword because he doesn't have any self-control. He's impulsive. He's quick, which is very useful on a battlefield, but very bad in a sort of domestic, like when he's in a fight with his wife. So you see, it's still summary. I'm still summarizing what happened, right? This guy stabbed this other guy in the face with a sword. But if you want to talk about the psychology going on in the guy's mind at the time, that's a sort of advanced thing you can do with summary. You also want to pay attention to details, to notice things. Now, usually in a novel, they'll just tell you shit like, it was December, it was midnight. But in a poem, sometimes you'll have to guess that it's December or midnight based on little tiny details. So, for example, like in Shakespeare plays, characters often come out and they talk about they're like, the stars are beautiful tonight. That's because in Shakespeare's day, when they did a play on stage, they did it outside during the day and they didn't have any sets. And so the characters would come out and say, look at the beautiful stars, and the sun's up. But they would say that because it would let the audience know what time of day it was in the scene. So you want to just kind of notice stuff like that. And sometimes it's just stupid. There's snow on the ground, and that lets you know that it's winter time, and there's, but you want to pay attention to these little details and kind of pick this stuff up. Yeah, I think that's basically all I want to say for now about summary. It's pretty simple. Everybody knows how to do it. The trick is, don't get stuck on summary. Most people, if you ask them about a work of art, they tend to just summarize it. They go, I saw this movie, and this happened, and this happened, and this happened, and this happened, and this happened. And then they're done. Maybe they might go, and it was awesome. But that's not summary, but that's something else. But the point is they spend most of their time summarizing. It's fine. I recommend you do your summaries pretty briefly in order to make a bigger point with one of the other 5 key terms. Okay, and I think I'm done with summary. I'll pick it up in the next video.